So here's Dylan Ratigan. Here we go.
That is a mathematical fact. This is not some opinion. This is a mathematical fact. Tens of trillions of dollars are being extracted from the United States of America. An entire integrated system, financial system, trading system, taxing system that was created by both parties over a period of 2 decades is at work on our entire country right now. And we're sitting here arguing about whether we should do the $4 trillion plan that kicks the can down the road for the president or burn the place to the ground, both of which are reckless, irresponsible, and stupid. And the fact of the matter is, until we actually, and I'm sorry to lose my temper, but I tell you what, I've been coming on TV for 3 years doing this. And the fact of the matter is that there's a refusal on both the Democratic and the Republican side of the aisle to acknowledge the mathematical problem, which is that the United States of America is being extracted. It's being extracted through banking, it's being extracted through trade, and it's being extracted through taxation. And there's not a single politician that has stepped forward.
Everybody, you know what his voice is. It's Dylan Ratigan, ladies and gentlemen.
This bill is a additional. I mean, what this bill is a bunch of money for the richest 1,000 people to consolidate the hammerlock across the totality of the American economy, using taxpayer money to strangle taxpayers.
And so,
while calling it bailout for taxpayers, all of it is just an exploitation of the biological event.
And so, my cynicisms again can't keep up with reality.
It is staggering, and I don't even know. It's one thing to have a financial crisis and repair the financial crisis in a way that's to the benefit of the wealthy to accumulate more assets. It's even more beyond comprehension to basically allow the government and billionaires to exploit the biological crisis to do a massive further consolidation while calling it a rescue. A year's worth of drama, and took, from September 2008 until March of 2009, the last time to steal a few $1 trillion in assets. And in this case, because the biological panic is so severe and because they've already done it once before, they're able to facilitate the theft in a matter of days, which is rather impressive.
And so I shared with people the NBC News coverage of this. They're not going to report it that way, are they?
No. The correct leadership here is to step up and say, this is not a bailout for the American people. This is giving cash to a small group of investors and banks so that they can buy up bankrupt assets from everybody else.
And then the Fed is going to give out that money to corporations at the Treasury Department and the Fed's behest. And there's no accounting for where they're going to spend that money before they spend it. There's only going to be a perfunctory oversight board of 5 people who are going to look into $4.2 trillion worth of money given out.
Well, again, there's the $4 trillion at the Fed, then there's the $2 trillion with the government. It doesn't really matter. The point is, because your point remains the same regardless of the dollar amounts or where the allocations are. It's an abomination beyond all comprehension. They are actively restructuring the American economy in a way that simply consolidates ownership of assets to a smaller and smaller group in the private sector, using each catastrophe as an opportunity to use taxpayer money to accomplish that. And then they call it a bailout for the people.
Yeah. So this is just a big con. And because the people who own the government are now they're just extracting wealth.
That's right. Not only that, they're just getting free money from the taxpayer to to buy distressed assets from Americans at a time when the assets are distressed because of the biological catastrophe. So basically, because you have a lot of people that are in distress from the catastrophe, it's a great opportunity to rapaciously strip them of all their assets and make them your tenant and take away all their ownership. But the only way you can do that is if you have money. And so the only place you can really get money is from the government. And so you get these big companies that get the money from the government, so that the big financial institutions get the money from the government, so that they can then just raid all the assets and take complete ownership of everything.
And so you don't think the American...
And then Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer call it a bailout, and Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren say, looks good to me.
So we've been betrayed by our entire political class, including our pretend heroes of Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders.
Unequivocally.
Wow.
Staggeringly so.
Okay. But the fact is that somebody should have stopped this bill. Hey, why did
the fact
this?
Is that,
and
the fact, I mean, the opportunity. Do you understand the political? It's stunning to me because the political value of somebody standing up and saying this bill is garbage. Sure, you have to support the banks. You can't have a financial crisis, but at the same time, you must have intense strings attached to any money that comes out. One, and two, you have to provide universal income and universal health care, at least for the duration of the crisis. That is obvious to any human being, regardless of your political persuasion. The willingness to consciously not see the obvious is impressive to me, actually. It's sort of I've sort of been learning about the degree of human mental illness and its ability to only see what it wants to see, and this is a staggering example.
I don't even know. I don't even want to do the rest of the show. How the hell? I mean, this seems nuts. I mean, it is nuts. It doesn't seem nuts. It is nuts, but it's nuts that it's being allowed to happen, and it's going to be allowed to happen, Dylan. And because the people who are supposed to tell people about this are bought by the same people who are instituting this policy. They're bought by the same people who this policy is made to serve, which is the richest 1% in the country. And so, we got 15 billionaires who own all our media in the United States. So I don't care. Ali Veshy and Chris Hayes are not going to tell you the truth about this bill. The banks got bigger after Barack Obama bailed them out. They made the banks bigger. They kicked 5.1 million people out of their house. Are they going to do that again? You think they're going to start kicking people out of their houses?
I think as soon as they possibly can, they will. I'm sure they're anxious to do that. I think that there's going to be a legal, it sounds like they're going to have to wait 3 months before they can really start destroying people's lives. But I'm sure they're anxious for the opportunity. It's staggeringly criminal.
It's staggeringly
brilliant on their part.
Staggeringly criminal. So that's how I said it's like the mafia. This is like the bill the mafia would come up with. You give the people a turkey at Thanksgiving, and then you steal protection money from them for the rest of the year.
There you go.
That's what's happening. And
then you relate to them as if you're their best friend in the world, and then you let them vote for you and call yourself a democracy.
So this is going to make income inequality much worse. It'll be harder for people to get their fair share of the profits that they generate in the businesses that they work at.
But what they're doing right now politically is dangerous and may provoke some social problems.
So you're saying that you think the yellow vest scenario is likely after people figure out what is happening?
Maybe Donald Trump can redirect that energy to kill Mexicans, or there's lots of places that you can point hostile energy to other innocent victims to avoid having to deal with it yourself, and they're very manipulative that way.
Right. So they find a whipping boy, a scapegoat, and then all the every problem you have because of this corporate bailout, they can then funnel that energy towards a scapegoat.
Yeah, and that scapegoat can be the Republicans, and that scapegoat can be the Democrats, so you can blame either one of the parties. That's the beautiful thing about the two corrupt parties working together so magically in these situations is there's lots of finger pointing as to whose fault it is. Was it, where's Mitt Romney? Where's Bernie Sanders? Where's the Republicans? Where's Donald Trump? All of that energy is really beneficial to them because it allows them to continue to do whatever they want, while everybody's blaming somebody else. So sort of a who's on first of blame. And then beyond the political blaming, you can get into all of the identity targeting.
Right.
It's not about breaking up the monopolies at this point, even just the corporate monopolies. It is literally about breaking the corrupt hammerlock of the two-party political system that is choking America to death.
And I'm told every time I try to break that, I give suggestions to break that, people tell me that I'm dumb and I don't understand how politics works and it can't be done. And this is it. We just have two parties and that's the way it's going to be forever.
It's a sick country.
Yes. This is a sick country.
But It's also a beautiful country full of beautiful human beings, and it has incredible potential. So the politics in this country are satanic. The human beings in this country are oppressed and abused.
Our country is run by rotten criminals who enrich themselves at the expense of everybody else, and they still tell you you can't have health care. How are you going to pay for it? It's funny, right? And then for some reason,
they're 10 trillion up. Anyway, the joke explains itself.
Yeah. Well, the problem is that this is because they're taking advantage of this biological crisis, and we also can't protest because of this biological crisis, nor will we probably be able to protest for another year until there's a goddamn vaccine.
Pretty brilliant on their part, wouldn't you say?
Because you can't imagine the level of evil that is being perpetrated right now, right? It's unbelievable. It's mind-boggling. And the fact that
it's also much more sophisticated. It's extremely sophisticated and gentle.
Right.
It's all being done in the context of helping you.
Of a bailout. We're saving you. And
there you go. Now you're learning.
Yeah, we're going to save you. We're going to give you health care for 5 minutes. Well, as soon as we can get out in the streets, I'm going to get a yellow vest and a bullhorn, and we're going to do something. But again,
yeah, I mean, listen, just stay 6 feet apart from your fellow protesters.
But say what you want about America, land of the free, home of the brave. The owners of this country don't want that. I'm talking about the real owners now. The real owners, the big wealthy business interests that control things and make all the important decisions. Forget the politicians. The politicians are put there to give you the idea that you have freedom of choice. You don't. You have no choice. You have owners. They own you. They own everything. They own all the important land. They own and control the corporations. They've long since bought and paid for the Senate, the Congress, the state houses, the city halls. They got the judges in their back pockets. And they own all the big media companies, so they control just about all of the news and information you get to hear. They got you by the balls. They spend billions of dollars every year lobbying to get what they want. Well, we know what they want. They want more for themselves and less for everybody else. But I'll tell you what they don't want. They don't want a population of citizens capable of critical thinking. They don't want well-informed, well-educated people capable of critical thinking. They're not interested in that. That doesn't help them. That's against their interest. That's right. They don't want people who are smart enough to sit around the kitchen table and figure out how badly they get by a system that threw them overboard 30 years ago. They don't want that. You know what they want? They want obedient workers. Obedient workers. People who are just smart enough to run the machines and do the paperwork, and just dumb enough to passively accept all these increasingly shittier jobs with the lower pay, the longer hours, the reduced benefits, the end of overtime, and the vanishing pension that disappears the minute you go to collect it. And now they're coming for your Social Security money. They want your retirement money. They want it back, so they can give it to their criminal friends on Wall Street. And you know something? They'll get it. They'll get it all from you sooner or later, because they own this place. It's a big club, and you ain't in it. You and I are not in the big club. And by the way, it's the same big club they use to beat you over the head with all day long when they tell you what to believe. All day long, beating you over the head in their media, telling you what to believe, what to think, and what to buy. The table is tilted, folks. The game is rigged. And nobody seems to notice. Nobody seems to care. Good, honest, hard-working people, white collar, blue collar, doesn't matter what color shirt you have on. Good, honest, hard-working people continue. These are people of modest means. Continue to elect these rich suckers who don't give a fuck about them. They don't care about you at all, at all, at all. Man, you know? And nobody seems to notice, nobody seems to care. That's what the owners count on, the fact that Americans will probably remain willfully ignorant, because the owners of this country know the truth. It's called the American dream, because you have to be asleep to believe it. You have to be asleep to believe it. You have to be asleep to believe it. You have to be asleep to believe it.
One-sided news stories plaguing our country. Plaguing our country. Plaguing our country. Plaguing our country.
They got you by the balls.